The voicemail from my son lasted 11 seconds. Dad, we just think it'd be easier this year if you didn't come. Karen's family is a lot, and yeah, Merry Christmas. 11 seconds, 43 years of being his father, and I got 11 seconds and a dial tone. My name is Ned Calloway. I'm 71 years old, and until that Tuesday in December, I had never once missed a Christmas with my family. Not when I had pneumonia in 1987, not when a blizzard shut down every highway between Ohio and Pennsylvania, and I drove anyway, white-knuckling it through 3 states in a borrowed truck. Not even the Christmas after Alina died, when getting out of bed felt like climbing Everest in dress shoes. I showed up. That's what I did. That's what I had always done. But apparently, this year, showing up wasn't wanted. I sat in my kitchen for a long time after the voicemail, long enough for my coffee to go cold, for the afternoon light to shift across the floor, for the old house to settle and creak around me the way it always did, like it was breathing. I looked at the Christmas card I had already bought for my son, Derek, and his wife, Karen. I had signed it with so much love, Dad. I put it in the recycling bin. Then I picked up the phone and called my friend Gerald, who was also, as it happened, my attorney. Gerald, I said, how quickly can we get the Asheville house staffed and opened up? There was a pause. Ned, that place has been closed since September. I know, how quickly? Another pause. Give me 48 hours. You've got 36. Here is something my family did not know about me, or rather, something they had stopped bothering to know. When Alina and I were young, we had nothing, and I mean nothing in the way that people who have always been comfortable cannot really understand. We ate cereal for dinner. We drove a car with a broken heater through 4 New England winters because we couldn't afford to fix it. Alina wore her coat inside our first apartment from November to March. But I had a mind for patterns, and Alina had a mind for people, and together we built something. A logistics software company, small at first, then less small, then, after 20 years of 7-day workweeks and calculated risks, and one very fortunate acquisition in 2003, something that required accountants who had their own accountants. We sold it in 2011. Alina was already sick by then, though we didn't know how sick. She passed in 2014, and I spent the years after that doing what I had always done, showing up. To Derek's kids' soccer games, to school plays, to birthday parties and Thanksgivings and Easters. I drove, I flew, I sent money when they needed it and didn't mention it when they didn't say thank you. I bought a modest house in the same suburb as Derek and Karen so I could be nearby. What I did not talk about, what I had never particularly felt the need to advertise, was the estate in Asheville. Alina and I had bought it in 2009, a 12-acre property in the Blue Ridge Mountains with a main house, 2 guest cottages, a heated pool, and a view that made you feel like the world was trying to apologize for all its trouble. We'd had 3 perfect Christmases there before she got too ill to travel. After she died, I closed it up. It felt too big for grief. Until Derek left me 11 seconds on a voicemail. I made calls, not to Derek, not yet, but to everyone else. My daughter, Rosalie, who lived in Portland and whom Karen had never particularly liked. Dad, are you serious right now? She said when I explained. You got disinvited from Christmas. Don't make it dramatic. Ned Calloway, that is the most dramatic thing I've ever heard. I need to know if you and Marcus and the girls can fly out of Portland on the 23rd. Silence, then, are you sending a plane? Yes, I'll go pack. I called my brother Pete, who was 74 and had the energy of a man 50 years younger and the mouth to match. He said without hesitation, tell me where to be and when, and I will be there, brother. I called Alina's sister, Margaret, who had always been my favorite of her siblings and who burst into tears when I told her about the voicemail. Oh, Ned, she said. Oh, that's just not right. I told her I agreed and gave her the details. I called friends who had become family over the years, the kind of people you trust with your worst days, not just your best ones. By Thursday morning, I had 14 confirmed guests flying into Asheville Regional. I had a catering team, a decorator, a pianist for Christmas Eve, and a staff of 6 who had worked the property before and were happy for the work. I sent Derek and Karen a single text message. Merry Christmas. Hope Karen's family visit is wonderful. I did not mention where I was going. I did not explain anything. I simply left. The estate was more beautiful than I'd remembered. 36 hours of frantic preparation had transformed it, garland on every banister. A 14-foot tree in the great room that Rosalie's daughters immediately claimed as their personal responsibility to decorate. The smell of pine and wood smoke, and something wonderful happening in the kitchen. Margaret stood in the doorway of the main house and looked out at the mountains going blue in the evening light and said, very quietly, "Elena would have loved this." "I know," I said. "That's why I finally opened it back up." We ate together that first night, a long, noisy dinner that lasted 3 hours and required 2 tables pushed together and 2 extra bottles of wine. Pete told a story about something I had apparently done in 1974 that I had no memory of and strongly disputed. Rosalie's girls, 9 and 11, performed an original Christmas play that had no discernible plot, but tremendous enthusiasm. Marcus, Rosalie's husband, played guitar by the fire, and for a while we all just listened. I had forgotten, I realized, what it felt like to be somewhere you were genuinely wanted. Christmas Eve was the kind of evening that Elena used to call keeper nights, the ones you file away carefully in your memory because you understand, even while you're living them, that you'll want to return to them someday. The pianist played carols after dinner. Snow fell lightly on the mountains. The great room glowed with firelight and the kind of laughter that belongs entirely to people who love each other without agenda. I was sitting in the leather chair by the window, the one I had always thought of as mine, when my phone began to buzz. The first call was from Derek. I let it go to voicemail. The second call was from Karen, same. The third call was from Derek again, then Karen again, then a number I recognized as Derek's mother-in-law, Sandra, whom I had met exactly twice, then Derek again. I put the phone face down on the side table and went back to watching Pete attempting, unsuccessfully, to teach Rosalie's 9-year-old how to play gin rummy. By midnight, I had 42 missed calls. I did not learn the full story until Rosalie found out through her own channels and brought me a glass of bourbon and a look that managed to be both amused and sympathetic. It turns out that Karen's family Christmas had not gone particularly well. Sandra had made a comment about the house. Karen's brother had made a comment about Derek's career. There had been an argument about politics that became an argument about something older and more painful underneath the politics. By Christmas Eve afternoon, 3 people were not speaking to 2 other people. Someone's feelings had been significantly hurt, and the general atmosphere was, as Rosalie described it, relaying information with obvious effort at restraint. Not great, Dad. Derek had apparently mentioned, in passing, that his own father was spending Christmas alone. Sandra had apparently asked why on earth they had let that happen. And the calls had begun. I called Derek back on Christmas morning, early, before the house was awake, when the mountains were doing that thing they do at dawn, where they seem to hold light differently than anywhere else. He picked up on the second ring. He sounded like someone who had not slept. "Dad. Merry Christmas, Derek." A long pause. Mum would have killed me. "Yes," I said, "she probably would have. I don't have a good excuse." I'm not asking for one, and I meant it. I had been angry, I won't pretend I hadn't, but sitting in that house, surrounded by people who had dropped everything and flown across the country because I asked them to, the anger had gone somewhere quiet. "I want you to know that I'm not sitting alone eating canned soup. I'm doing fine." "Where are you?" "Asheville, the estate." Silence, a long one. "You opened the Asheville house?" "Yes." "Dad, that place has been closed for 10 years. 11. Another silence, this one different in texture, heavier. "I didn't know you still had it." "You never asked." I said it simply, without accusation, just as a fact, and a small one. There were larger facts between us, but Christmas morning felt like the wrong time for them. "I'd like you to come for New Year's, if Karen is willing, Bring the kids, the guest cottage is big enough. Yeah, and his voice was rough. Yeah, okay, we'd like that. Good, I looked out at the mountains. Merry Christmas, son. Merry Christmas, Dad. I came back inside and found Margaret in the kitchen making coffee with the confidence of someone who had been using the kitchen for years. She handed me a mug without a word. Through the window, we could see Rosalie's daughters already outside in the snow, doing something elaborate and inexplicable that involved sticks and what appeared to be a system of rules only they understood. Good call, Margaret asked. Good enough, I said. She nodded and looked out at the mountains. You know, she said, Elena always said you were slow to act but right when you finally moved. She was generous. She was accurate. Margaret smiled into her coffee. You did a good thing, Ned, opening this place back up, opening up all of it. I thought about the 11-second voicemail. I thought about the 42 missed calls. I thought about the 14-foot tree currently being guarded by two little girls who had learned its name was Gerald. They had named it after my attorney, which I found extremely funny, and the fire that Pete had already announced he was personally responsible for maintaining, and the pianist's version of Oh Holy Night still somewhere in my chest, like an ember that hadn't gone out. Elena used to say the house was too big for two people, I said. She was right. Turns out, I said, picking up my coffee and looking out at the snow, it's exactly the right size for all of us. 42 missed calls, 14 guests, one 14-foot tree named Gerald, and one old man who remembered, just in time, that showing up isn't only something you do for other people, sometimes it's something you finally do for yourself.